And welcome to another episode of Football the Pod. I'm your host, Commissioner Ben. All right, welcome to Football the Pod, Season 4, Episode 12. It is Wednesday, November 19th, and I'm recording a quick solo pod today after a brutal fantasy week all around, unless your name was Sean or Eddie. And yes, you did hear the original intro back. We'll go back and forth, but after my cease and desist letter from Spotify, whoa, camera's shaking from that. Yeah, fought off the email saying take that clip down, using the clip that I edited in from Spotify's own media player that are supposed to be free. So I have no idea why that was targeted. Probably because of Scott drinking something that wasn't Busch Light, like I said. But we'll see what happens here. Setting it back, but don't worry, we'll get back to the intense one when we're getting into the playoffs. For now, though, let's get back to it. Truly, this was one of the worst weeks overall. That is week 11 in our league in football and fantasy. We had 5 teams scoring below 100 points. And some true heroes rising from dust to lead teams to victory. It fired me up so much that it led me to delve into the record books a bit. And also, I had nothing better to do because I myself was having one of those brutal weeks. But we'll get into that. Before we do, though, it is time for Just the Tip with Commissioner Ben. All right, today's tip is about trading for schedules. This is timely. The trade deadline is this week. It is Saturday, in fact. Saturday at midnight Pacific time. More on that in a sec. But for all those teams out there thinking about the playoffs now, all right, this is a tip specifically for the playoffs. I mean, you can reverse it if you're not thinking about playoffs just yet, if you're trying to make those playoffs. But you want to start looking ahead already to teams with great schedules, players with great schedules in weeks 15, 16, and 17. Those playoff weeks, because we all know it's about winning in the playoffs. And so let's look at some of the top schedules at each fantasy position based on fantasy points given up from weeks 1 through 11. So starting off with quarterback, we've got some unlikely ones that might be okay, maybe. I mean, this is a little bit sketchy, but to stream some quarterbacks in the playoffs, some great schedules for the quarterbacks. We have Miami, so Tua, Minnesota, so J.J. McCarthy. Probably still don't want to play him. But the Giants, we got Jackson Dart, who does have a great quarterback schedule. On to running back. The top running back matchups for the playoffs are Cleveland, so maybe Quinshawn Judkins does something. We got Washington. Who's it going to be? Chris Rodriguez, Bill Krosky Merritt, probably Chris Rodriguez, we will see. And the Patriots, so perhaps it really is Travion season. Probably it's also Ramondre. On to wide receiver. This one often coincides with quarterback, but Philly actually rise to the top here. So maybe Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown will have some consistency in the playoffs. And then we have the Giants once again. Perhaps Darius Slayton is a sneaky play if he gets healthy. And then the Vikings, coinciding with J.J. McCarthy, which I'm sure would be a great play. At tight end, we've got Baltimore as a top tight end team, with Mark Andrews probably getting another rushing touchdown. I'm sure that's what will happen. Miami as well. So maybe you want to stash Darren Waller. And then Seattle. So maybe A.J. Barner can do something in the playoffs. And then on to defense. The top are actually quite unexpected. Definitely pick up a bowl and streamable. We've got Cincinnati, Dallas, and the New York Giants, who could all provide streamer value. But you can look into this yourself. You don't need me. The little green outlines in Yahoo should help when you click on a player and you go to the player game log and see which team opponents light up in green for each week. Okay, but I'm more trustworthy than that. And that was just the tip with Commissioner Ben. All right, there's no guest this week since I had no time to organize, but volunteers for next week, please. Let's, come on out. This will be a real quick podcast. I'll fly through everything like I said. So let's get right into it, on to fantasy. So once again, reminder, the trade deadline, Saturday night at midnight. Get those last-minute wheeling and dealing done. Quick summary, we've had 8 trades so far this year, which does tie 2 years ago. But last year, we had an incredible 13 trades, thanks to 4 coming in right at the deadline. So at this point, we had 9. We had 1 more than last year right at this point. Will we get 4 more at the deadline? Will we get more? We will have to see. I will say that Mike has already broken the record for trades in a year with 7, beating my record of 6 from last year. So truly impressive. 7 of the 8 trades this year have been accounted for by Mike. Will someone else get involved to close things out? Only 3 days to find out. All right, on to our main segment, the week in review, starting, of course, with the low score. And now, I obviously talked too strongly about my team last week. This week, it just completely fell flat. I thought for sure my abysmal 70 points would earn me this honored moniker this week, but in fact, we had three scores that were lower than any other score so far this year. Before this week, our lowest score was Sarah's 83 points back in week 3. But then this week, we had Cassie with 76, me with 70, and impressively, this week's Poopy Football Award winner, Big Aaron, who took the biggest dump of all with a 55-pointer. Unfortunately, our low score records are ruined thanks to Eddie benching his whole team on multiple occasions before the playoffs. But I think it's safe to say that this is our lowest score ever. And I assign Eddie to look up their stats to clarify that. I do hope you found that extra $10 in your account, Aaron. I wouldn't even be upset if I were you, because it is truly such a bad score that you can be proud of it. All right, on to the high score of the week. In a week with incredible low scores, Eddie somehow made all the right moves for a dominant 204-point champ of the week score, easily beating Brandon's 191 points from week 4 for the highest score in our league on the year. However, still quite short of the league's all-time high score. That is a record that Eddie also holds from back in week 15 of 2019, where he had 228 points. I forget who Antonio Clown was, but please remind me. That's who Eddie crushed in the playoffs. That would have been round 2 of the playoffs that year, I believe. All right. Congratulations, Eddie, for your first champ of the week of the season. Let's move on into some speedy matchup breakdowns. So once again, we will share on video and audio, so follow along in whichever way you prefer, starting once again with the first matchup that I can see on my screen. So as we get the screen sharing working, I'll begin with the Battle of Ontario Street in Vancouver. That is myself against Sarah. And yeah, there is not a lot to say about too many of these matchups. That's why it's going to go real quick. Start off by, Sarah completely demolishing me, 126-70. And yeah, the battle started and ended there. This one was never close. There wasn't not much going on in Thursday Night Football. Sarah didn't even get a great game from Matt Stafford, but that was way better than Justin Herbert's worst game of the year, 17 points to 3 points at quarterback. And all right, let's look at my roster. Everybody, all of my touchdown scores from last week fell flat. In fact, I did not have a single touchdown this week across my whole roster, and so that's going to make it pretty hard to win. Egbuka got a bunch of targets, but only 9 points. Jamar Chase got 10 targets, only 3 catches, and decided to spit on Jalen Ramsey and get suspended for me next week. So yeah, that's going real well. Luke Musgrave, Brent's favorite player, gives me negative points. Only Drake London did okay. I get okay, Chase Brown as well. But now Drake London is going to be out this week. Quentin Johnson, another 0. I just can't catch a break. Well, okay, this week. Even on Sarah's side, nothing too big to speak of, although that Jameson Williams trade is looking real good for Sarah. Jameson Williams is going to be real strong down the stretch. That was a great pickup. Rico Dado's looking real good, but I think you want to be sitting Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara for the rest of the season, perhaps even dropping. He burned too bright in the preseason and never really got running in the regular season. All right, let's move on to our next matchup, where we had, this one is just one of the truly abysmal matchups. I will say, this week, there is not going to be a tight butthole matchup of the week, because there was not one that was really close, and the ones that were sort of close were just too disgusting to even think about. Like this one here, where we have Mike against Cassie, and Mike wins 94-76. Just such a low scoring victory, and there's nothing to be really proud of here. Cassie, we've been over this. Oh my God. Darius Slayton was injured. He didn't play. Sit him. Put him on your bench. Jerome Ford is not, he's like the 3rd running back. 2 rush yards. That's it. Just start somebody else. Brian Thomas Jr. hasn't played in like 4 weeks. Get him out of your lineup. Look at your bench. Okay. All right. If we do look at your bench, you would have still lost. But Still, come on. Also, what are you doing with Jacoby Brissett on your bench? You've got Patrick Mahomes. You don't need Jacoby Brissett. I wanted to pick him up this week at quarterback, but for some reason you got him. All right, well, at least the Ravens are doing better on your side. Why don't you set a lineup, Cassie, and at least push to win one of the top weekly scores? You can do it. It is possible. All right, you got some good players. Just set that lineup. I mean, on Mike's side, we have George Kittle and then a bunch of 11-point and under players. JJ McCarthy, I don't know what you're doing playing JJ McCarthy. I guess he wanted that Justin Jefferson stack. The two JJs, they combined for less than 20 points, so pretty bad there. Chris Rodriguez, though, hey, at least you found a starting running back on the waiver wire, so things are maybe looking better. Just abysmal all around. Let's move on to our third matchup of the week, where we have Golden Love Chubb, that is Brent's team, in this, well, aforementioned blowout with the top score on the year from Eddie once again, as the disaster season continues for Brent, who would have beaten about half of us or more in the league this year or this week, but ran into the likely season high score if it does hold up, losing 204 to 124. Brent's sixth loss in a row. I'm sorry, Brent. And 80-point differential, not even the blowout of the week. That's how crazy a week it was. All right, let me flash just something real quick for you. The hot list of the week. Who's hot? You know, this little feature you can do if you go to research, this research tab here. Research, where is it? Yeah, who's hot? There's a whole bunch of cool stuff here. So if you go to who's hot, you can look at the players in your league who are hottest each week. And if we look at all positions, all right, so we'll get to Brandon, who had Josh Allen, the top quarterback, absolutely destroyed with 6 touchdowns in total, over 48 fantasy points. Nobody was playing Bryce Young. And then look at this. Christian McCaffrey, Sean Tucker, Michael Wilson, Ted McMillan, 4 of the top 6 guys. Then we got Trayvon Henderson, all on Eddie's roster. So multiple, what is this, 5 30-point scorers. One of them was even on his bench. That's how you get. That's how you get this 200-point victory. If we go look at it, look at Eddie's bench, can even prove it to you here. That's where Sean Tucker is sitting, but it doesn't even matter. Eddie didn't even need it. He had 4 30-point scorers, 30-plus point scorers in his lineup, picking up and playing Michael Wilson, perhaps one of the pickup plays of the year, if it even mattered. I mean, Eddie's late blooming roster is really rounding out to form, getting Trayvon Henderson. Well, he's looking like a monster in the playoffs. All right. And on Brent's side, sorry. Jordan Love, hey, finally put in a good fantasy game, reasonable fantasy game. Nico Collins back to being good. Too bad AJ Brown is just real bad. And Xavier Legette, I mean, he got some reasonable starts, but you can't balance it out with playing Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is just going to do nothing for you all year. You'll be better when you get Alec Pierce back. You got some wins left in you, Brent. I believe in you. Let's move on to our fourth matchup of the week. And this one is, looking a little bit more normal, where we had Daniel against Brandon with a 133 to 106 victory for Brandon. That's 2 losses in a row now for Daniel, dropping down to 7-4. If we take a look here, I mean, this game for Brandon was basically Josh Allen and then a bunch of guys. Okay, Devon Achane. Devon Achane has been fantastic for Brandon all year. One of the top running backs on the year. Again, breaking 20 points without even getting a touchdown. But this is all about Josh Allen's 6-touchdown week. Incredible. Not really much of note else otherwise on Brandon's roster. Ricky Pearsall comes back and gets 1 catch for what even is the stat line? He had a reception. Oh, I think this was a lateral. He got a reception and then he lateraled it. And so he didn't get any yards for it. Hilarious. Oh, yeah, I remember watching that. All right, funny. On Daniel's side, did not have anybody score over 15 points other than his defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense were the top scoring player on Daniel's side, just all around. I mean, what a weird week. Amon-Ra St. Brown had dropped like 10 balls. Only 2 for 42. He had like 12 targets, just couldn't even catch. That's what was going on this week. Just terrible showing all around. Let's move on to our 5th matchup of the week. And again, another just not one, barely worth talking about. Jason against Scott, with Jason winning 104 to 92. I mean, Jason certainly needs the win. This one must feel good to beat Scott, but all right, let's just look at the win. This was James Cook doing well for Jason, again, after a bad week previously, but Sam Darnold, Ladd McConkey, top players combining for less than 10 points. Oh, man, hey, I guess you could play Tyrone Tracy. So, but Cortland Sutton has completely fallen off. It seems like Troy Franklin has overtaken the number 1 wide receiver role on Denver offense, and they've got trouble passing the ball. Joe Flacco, just finally, it was bound to happen, but he fell apart for Scott this week. Scott was the Trey McBride, and Scott's team is going to completely live or die on Trey McBride plus Jonathan Taylor. He needs like 5 points apiece from everybody else. And if he can get 30 each week from Jonathan Taylor and Trey McBride, he'll probably do well. And that's what it all comes down to. But that's not much to say here. Just terrible scores all around. Let's move on to our sixth matchup, where we have Sean against Big Aaron. And, well, we already alluded to this. This one, in a week of season records, this was easily our not just blowout of the week, but the blowout of the year. As Sean humiliated Aaron 153-55, this near 98-point victory was the largest margin of defeat of our season. Not all time, however. That was Cassie asserting her dominance early on in her league days with a 124 point win over Christine back in 2022. But alas, I mean, this is still complete domination. Let's look at Aaron's roster. 5 points, not even 5 points from Lamar. 0.7 for Khalil Shakir. 6 for Rome Odunze. 4 points for Josh Jacobs. Just everybody, other than Christian Watson. Great game with 2 touchdowns, 20 points. And this next best scoring player was his kicker. Even had negative points from the Chargers defense to rub it all in. Oh man, just hilarious. Aaron, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of 10 starting positions scoring less than 5 points. Never seen anything like it. Unbelievable. Over here on Sean's side, that Monday Night Football stack of Dak Prescott against George Pickens, 60 points there. That's looking like a real good stack going into the playoffs with the most consistent wide receiver on the year, Jackson Smith and Jigba, JSN, and Bijan Robinson. I mean, these 4 players carried Sean. Everybody else did nothing, but that's all Sean is going to need. He can get consistent scores from all for those 4 of those players. Sean is a scary matchup, and unfortunately, I got to play him this week. And move on to our last matchup of the week, where we have a nice little logo here, Je ne sais quoi, Christine, against Indiana Baker, Nick's team, but the logo was not enough. In another ho-hummer with Nick ending Christine's mini win streak, 116-100. For Nick now on a 3-game win streak of his own. And all right, let's take a look at this. Mediocrity all around from Christine's side. 0 points from Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman was benched. You got to pay attention, Christine. Come on, put in Keon Coleman. And what do you do in playing 2 tight ends? Travis Kelce plus David Njoku. Travis Kelce has been surprisingly very good. Get him in your tight end slot. You don't need to play David Njoku as well. Don't play 2 tight ends. That's what Scott is here for. You could have been playing, you got Bam Knight was the starting running back on Arizona. Kyle Monunga has been rolling in steady performances. He's a weekly start now. Obviously, you weren't going to play Emmanuel Wilson, but you get in Bam Knight and Kyle Monunga for David Njoku and Keon Coleman, and you win. I blame this one on you. Nick made the right quarterback decision because he started a quarterback who wasn't on bye, so there you go. An okay game from Baker Mayfield. Maybe Quinton Judkins does something because he's got that good playoff schedule that I talked about, but he has just been brutal all around. Deebo Samuel, though, carried Nick's roster along with Jahmyr Gibbs, who is going to be fantastic in the playoffs, I'm sure. Hey, Nick, if you still want to come out and get the handcuff for Kyron Williams, we got a few more days to make a deal. All right, but that closes things off. Let's just take a quick look at the top players this week. It was just crazy. You were not getting good scores this week. Normally we can scroll through and there's like 10, 15, even not loads of players that are at least getting 20 plus points. If we go look at all these players, okay, at quarterback, we had, 7 quarterbacks with at least 20 points. 2 of them are free agents. Justin Fields and Bryce Young, you're not playing them. Jacoby Brissett on a bench. Brock Purdy on a bench. No top points at quarterback. At wide receiver, our top players. Michael Wilson, the number 1 wide receiver on the week. I mean, unbelievable. And then we only had, another 7 of them get at least 20 points. I mean, they're all guys you're playing, but no big high scores outside of that. Sean Tucker, the number 2 running back on the week after Christian McCaffrey. Kenny Gainwell, the number 5 running back on the week with 29 points. Nobody's playing these guys this week, and that's true. It didn't happen. And then we only had, 9 of them getting 20 points each. Just crazy week all around. All right, the tight ends, the big hitters, the heavy hitters, Trey McBride, George Kittle, and Travis Kelce came in strong as expected, but just a weird week all around. And that's how we'll end it. That's the Week 11 speed wrap. A quick reminder that we've got 4 teams on bye this week. All right, let's give a quick summary as I close things out. Finish the day by leaving you with the league standings as I finish off. So league standings go in the background. If you happen to be watching, I won't talk about who's overtaken me for first. But remember, 4 teams on bye this week. We got the Broncos, we got the Chargers, we got the Dolphins and the Commanders. Then looking ahead, oddly, there are no byes next week in week 13. Then in week 14, right before the fantasy playoffs, and what will be a critical week, we've got 4 more teams on bye: the Panthers, the Patriots, the Giants, and the 49ers. So pay attention to your roster looking ahead. Trade away players on these bye teams if you need the wins now. Trade for them if you can sacrifice a weaker roster for the playoff bump. And that's it. Week 11 is over. There are only 3 weeks left. Next week, we'll do a quick standings overview to really flesh things out for the final 2 weeks. But until then, set those lineups. Come on, set those lineups. We're starting players, people, pay attention. Send some final trade offers and get ready for another exciting week of football. Until next time, thank you everybody for listening, and good luck. Have a great week.